The big question, my friends, is this. How did I buy over 200 high cash flowing properties since the millennium, using the best no money down strategies from planning gains, refurbs, off plan, guaranteed rent, lease options, student lets, service accommodation, HMOs, negative equity, and dozens more to build a multi-million pound property portfolio and then lose everything, including my wife, my children, all of my money and my liberty, when I was sent to prison for a crime committed by a lifelong friend, and then start over in £175,000 of debt, and now in 2020 have to restructure my entire companies and fast, using the most up-to-date high cash flowing strategies to pull my company, my partners, and my listeners through this economic crash. I'm Ryan Otto, and this top-rated business podcast will give you all the answers. Okay, brilliant. So I'm here on the podcast with I've got Maayan Gordon here on the podcast. She's well, where do I start? She's a massive TikTok influencer. She's fantastic at what she's doing online on social, LinkedIn consultant as well, helping people build their following, find more people online, help more companies, expand their reach. And she's doing some great things, and she's got, I think, 1.7 million followers on TikTok already, which is fantastic to achieve, such a big thing. And I think you're around about 2.3 million across social, LinkedIn and Instagram and everything else. So just really excited to have you on the show, and just helping as much value to my audience with some of the great things that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to, share all the things that I've learned so far and help people achieve, their ideal lifestyle.
Yeah, that's ideal. So what I think most people will be thinking of, where or how did you get into this? Because you've done so well, and where you are now, and obviously all the influence you got across all the platforms. It's not as if you're just on one platform like some people. You've really obviously, you know what you're doing. You're across all of the social platforms. So, how did you, how did you get started?
Yeah, so I guess where I say it really all got started was my love of money. So ever since I've been young, I've always been both fascinated and very interested in getting and figuring out how to get money. I grew up in a household where we didn't have an allowance or any type of money that was just given to us. We had to, mow the lawn or do chores, although we had a set amount of chores, so it had to be extra chores for money. Okay. And even when we got money, it was still very controlled in terms of spending by our parents. So I never felt like it was my money, even though I was working for the $5 for, mowing the lawn. I wasn't allowed to spend it on the candy that I wanted. I grew up Orthodox Jewish, keeping kosher, so I couldn't spend it on almost any of the food that I wanted. And let's be honest, kids, like 80% of what they want at any time is food, and the other 20% is like toys or games. So I was always, thinking about it since an early age, how, when I grow up, and am I going to get money so that I can spend it how I want to spend it? And at the time, really growing up until I was in college, I thought that the only options were you get a really good job that pays you, like a lawyer or a doctor. I think a lot of people can relate to a household that really kind of focused on that type of, education and then job acquisition. But when I got into college, I still had the same mindset. I was like, okay, how am I going to make some money to pay for, pizza parties and all the different things that you want in college, clothes, whatever it is. And I just started searching around on the internet. I'd always been very good online. And, I came on this, I'd known about this website, Craigslist, for a long time. And I discovered it had at the time a really great gigs section, that the jobs, it was really hard to deal with the jobs. You had to always fill out a really long application. But the gigs were just people who wanted things done. And so I started sending out, my portfolio of written work to these people and getting all sorts of different writing jobs, copywriting mostly, landing pages, email marketing, articles for, content marketing. And I fell in love with that because not only was it something I was getting paid for that I was pretty good at, but also at the same time, oh, are we good there? On my end, it
We're
lagged
still
just
good.
a little bit.
Yeah, we're still good. Carry
Okay,
on.
sweet, awesome. So I, was fascinated by the fact that writing had such a power over our actions and the way that we were thinking, especially when it came to online. And that was very different than any other type of writing I'd done in high school, which was like essay format, where writing a book report or your analyzed opinions from research. Copywriting's all about like how you make people feel and how you're getting people to act and the influence. And so I'd say that really copywriting was how I got into influencing. And that learning how words can be really powerful got me just to fall in love with the connection that we can create as human beings between each other through words. So that led me down a crazy long path of building up my own businesses. So I dropped out of college. I did copywriting for a bit. Then I started up a product-based business where we sold a smoking accessory. And when I say we, me and my husband,
Okay.
who we were just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, but kind of through building a business, I think really built a strong relationship as well. And of course had many issues with that. The classic, I think, stress issues that any relationship has that also works together. But did that for 2 years, then went back to my skill set of graphic design, did a sticker and t-shirt company for 2 years. Saw that I couldn't scale that with the resources that I had, because at that time I had no access to lines of credit, no access to really any money. And so I was always relying on organic marketing. And I found that social media was just one of the best organic marketing tools that you could ever conceive of, especially if you learned how to use it in the right ways.
And what was that when you found and discovered social media? When?
It
How far
was,
back?
yeah, so that was about 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago with Instagram. So I'd been on Facebook using it with some success for my business. But it was very like a one-to-one type of conversion or payoff. And I've always been someone who's focused on when I do an action, I want it to both reward me now, but also be an investment in the future. And so it just Facebook to me, posting in the groups, getting one customer off of that, but not having any lasting organic or like recurring reach from that was not that appealing. Whereas Instagram, I could do one post and I could
Yeah.
get people interested that day, but then maybe 2 weeks later, still people were engaging with the post. And it doesn't necessarily work that way anymore, but back when I was on Instagram initially, it had much better organic reach. And so you could, get this repeating payout. And then also, in addition to just the organic reach from customers, I was then using the post that I'd already done and the account I'd built to contact shops to do wholesale orders and to get business at a kind of higher level. And that was only something I could do with the use of my social media platform as extra proof that my product was a real good product for the shop to test out and buy versus just having a website. Because it's like at that time people were like, yeah, anyone can have a website. How do I know that your product's any good? Like, cool, anyone can put together a great website. But when you have a social media that has engagement, that people are demonstrating and taking action, that they enjoy your content and enjoy your product, it's very hard to like unreason yourself out of why people wouldn't want it.
Yeah, it really is. I understand. And just going back to what you said about obviously back then on Facebook, it was like some posts, and then you was getting say one customer, and then you went to Instagram. Obviously, it's changed again since then, the organic reach. But back then, it was multiple what inquiries you was getting from one post, or it was they were going somewhere else, then doing something to build the
Yeah.
relationship. They just convert from the platform.
Yeah, so I've always been someone, I think I'm torn in two directions. So I love the idea of complete automation and me doing nothing in terms of
Okay.
workload. In terms of workload and from my perspective of efficiency and time. But from the other in the other direction, I hate the idea and would love to only do one-on-one interaction because it's by far the most powerful.
Yeah.
And I believe certainly that if you really devote yourself to figuring out how to how to systematically create this, that you can have endless one-on-one interactions that are very short, but so powerful as to change that person's life. So that's
Because
something.
it can be, yeah, sorry to butt in there, it
Oh
can
yeah,
be very time consuming and not as impactful people will think and assume by just doing the one to one instead of the, you know, a huge room of 500 people in there. The one to one is much more deeper and more impactful, and it helps
it
in many
can
other
be.
ways.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely can be. I'm not saying, it's hard to throw a blanket statement across
Yeah,
the board. And I think certainly as our technology with like AI and just these different technologies are advancing, that we'll be able to incorporate the human element much more into um, automation and scaling, because it'll still be the person creating it. It'll just be the machine delivering it in a much
yeah.
more advanced and scalable way. So I think things are changing. But at this point, I'm really trying to focus more on spending, 5 to 60 minutes at this point. I'd love to get that down to a real like 5 to 10 minutes. And I know I can have a massive impact on any person I talk to, because I think that that massive impact it's so much deeper than learning or knowledge, or
Yeah.
right, there's like a difference between impact and just learning something new or feeling a certain way. And to have true impact on people, I think social media is one of the only tools digitally that allows us to do that. I can't send an email and really have that impact the same way as when I do a video and have the caption and music, that I can have really a much bigger impact.
Okay, so right now, what or where you are and how you're helping people is you're on all the social platforms, and then somebody may respond to one of your posts, which is just giving value, which I see, which is on all of the platforms that you're on. It's just, it's not like you're asking for anything. It's the opposite. You're just completely giving and helping them with their business and their social media. I've seen how much engagement you get with your posts and how many comments and likes and shares. So obviously, you've really honed those skills, and everybody who's part of your following on any of those platforms really values what you give. I've seen all of the messages that they send, and it's really great to be in that position. And I mean, so is it from that engagement that you're getting, people are then following up with you in another way to come on one of these, is it like a coaching call? Is it like a free strategy call? Is it this one-on-one thing? How or where does it go from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am in a really, I think, fortunate and wonderful position that I've really built for myself around being able to make my money in enough ways where I never feel like I have to make money with the person I'm talking to.
Yeah,
Like, I don't need your money to anyone. Now, of
yeah,
course, I need money, but
yeah,
because I have so many options, it there's this unique property I've been thinking about recently, where when you have enough options, it makes them more real, even though none of them are actually real at any given time until you've converted an option. It's not helping you, but somehow it is massively helping you to have more of them to pit against each other. And so now I'm in this position where it's really I get a look at everything I am, everything I have to offer, and just help people. And my underlying strategy is to create word of mouth referrals. So this is something I've experienced in my glass blowing business to a very heavy degree, is that the amount of word of mouth that can spread is actually much more, and again, much more impactful than people sharing a post. Like, sharing a post is cool, but when people are having a real conversation and it's a good conversation, it spreads. So, one person talks about my glass pieces and my account and who I am with their friend, and then their friend checks me out and has their own interaction with me or has their own experience, and now they're talking to their friends about it. And again, this is all without really me having to do anything past the point of what I'm wanting to do in the first place, which is share value. So how it comes back to me is, right now I'm doing a lot of phone calls that are one-on-one, and they're phone calls just to, usually people are curious about who I am, what I do. So it usually starts off, I'm telling kind of my story, how I got to where I am. And through that, they have their wheels in their head turning, thinking, oh, you'd be good at helping me with this, or, oh, I could see how we could work together in this way. And so I'd say that those phone calls go, I'd say out of 10, maybe 3 to 5 of them are potential clients who want my coaching, like one-on-one coaching or consultation.
Okay.
I would say 2 to 3 of them are founders of startups or owners of like really big companies that already exist but are trying to make a switch into digital and
Yeah.
want someone to either manage their accounts or really kind of help facilitate and give guidance in that type of scenario. So that really plays off in terms of the role in a lot of different ways, depending on what the company is. And then I would say another, the other 2 to 3 phone calls end up being just me giving advice and help to people who aren't going to use my services, but that I hope with my advice become massively more successful enough to hopefully maybe at some point they will use my services. But just in general, having successful friends is very, very good. You don't have to you don't have to have a business where they need your service. If you help people become successful, they want to help you out in whatever way that they can. And because now that they're successful, they have a lot more resources and ways to help you kind of in reciprocation. So I really do believe in community building. And I think if you just look at the world, it's very easy to see how amazing the cities are that we're able to build when we work together. Like those cities aren't built just by contractors. They're built by all the people who come together in City Hall and talk about the plans and think about what's best for the city and where to even zone. Like there's so much involved in anything that we've built at scale in humanity that that's what gets me really excited these days.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, from what you just said there, it's I mean, obviously the work you're doing and the people that you're helping. I mean, how does anybody listening to this right now, or starting out on social media that wants to turn it into maybe an agency or helping other people or growing their brand and helping others to grow theirs? Where do you get to the point on that? Obviously, you've had like hockey stick growth, but where would you say it was where you could go from your knowledge and what's working in your glass
Great
blowing
question.
business and your platforms, and then for it to get that hockey stick growth to then become helping others and big companies and all the influential friends that you have? And where would you say someone else could look to, or what was the turning point for you to get that momentum?
Yeah, so I think that really comes down, I would say, a lot to a personal, how you feel about teaching and who should teach who. So, and this is definitely something that is for sure different with all different people. And I know this because in glass blowing kind of culture, especially in the pipe world, there's a very kind of old school but very deep belief by many glass artists that you have to apprenticeship for a certain number of years, and
Okay.
then you can start making a specific style of piece, and you have to make that style of piece to learn the technique, and then you can start selling. And you're not allowed to start selling until you've done all that. Same thing with teaching, right? So there's a lot of people who think if you haven't been taught how to teach, it doesn't matter how much you know about something, you shouldn't teach people. Now,
Yeah.
the, then there's I'd say the other end of the spectrum, it would be to say some people are naturally good teachers and would never need to be taught how to teach because they're interactively learning with their students on how to do that. But some people do need to be taught. So like there's such a wide range. For me, I needed to wait until I felt I had the success I was aiming for to teach other people how to get the success they were aiming for. So even though with my glassblowing business in year 3 of it, I was doing very, very well and making a lot of money, I wasn't going to go teach other people how to start up their own business. And I was the entire time I've been in business, I've always given advice or shared my experiences, I think is probably a better way to put it. So, telling people, hey, guess what? I just discovered this cool new thing, which is like if you message people and you use emojis on Instagram, like happy emojis, people feel happier when they read the message. And like, it's kind of an obvious thing, but sharing that, and then people go, okay, now I have validation and permission to use this tactic, and then seeing it work, like, it's a powerful thing, sharing little things that work. Because a lot of
Yeah,
times we all know them, but we don't have the maybe confidence to start executing on them for fear that we'll discover the thing we thought was obvious is not true, and then we feel stupid. Um, and I think a lot of us are really stuck in a fixed mindset state where we're very scared if we discover that something we thought was really, really true is wrong, that we're
yeah,
dumb now. And I learned, I think that's been always one of my superpowers, is to be able to commit 100%, or I call it 99.999% certainty to something, and then realize, but at the same time be aware that I could be wrong, like 100%. Like, you're either wrong 100% or you're not. You know what I mean? In certain decisions. And so being able to commit 99.999% and then be wrong and be like, oh, that's okay, no big deal, I think has been really helpful, because it really is no big deal to be wrong about something. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. It's when
well, that's
you're,
part of being an entrepreneur as well, and taking risks and
yeah, it's, I
building
think
different things.
that's what I think it's mainly about, is being able to gauge risk. If you can accurately gauge your risk reward scenarios and kind of emotional capacity, because I think it's much more emotional when we do risk and reward than anything else, that's where you're going to be successful, because certain people can take only a certain amount of failure. Like, this is emotionally, this is just the truth. And certain people are much more capable at handling a lot more failure, whether it's they've been through it a lot or that's just kind of their demeanor. It's really important for any entrepreneur to understand what's going to break you. Where's your limit of, I can have all these bad things happen to me and I'll still be able to, in my mind, create positivity, versus if you think something, if this happens to me and I just won't be able to handle it, you should not put yourself in that position for that thing to happen. And you should work on that to start telling yourself, no, 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 even if that happened, I would be okay, because I think that's an important mentality for an entrepreneur to develop, is that grit of nothing can ruin me. Like, things can hurt me very, very deeply, but nothing will destroy me forever. I think there's a huge power in that. But also, like, we're human beings, and there will things that will push you past your point to where you're crying on the floor. And that's not a productive place to be. And so learning how to keep yourself in your most productive zone is very useful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said there. That resonates with me. It's giving me goosebumps. I don't know if you can see
Oh yeah,
on the
yeah,
camera. I mean, yeah, I think that's what it's like in life and business and for entrepreneurs. You know, you have to get back up, and there's
yeah,
a hell of a lot of failures before you find the big wins
yeah,
or lots of small wins along the way. And if you do give up at the first hurdle, no one's ever pushed themselves far enough to see what else is waiting if they just went that little bit further. And I think obviously right now, the climate that we're in, it's obviously horrendous
yeah,
in every single part, every corner of the world right now. And what you just said is the conversation that people will be having in their own minds
yeah,
about what they're about to lose or how much they could salvage in different markets and
yeah,
businesses. They're just Carphone Warehouse in the UK, just disappeared. And I think they
yeah,
had to fire 2,500 people or something, and then the airlines
yeah,
have done the same. So those people at the highest levels have got to go back to the drawing board, dig deep, and find that inner strength and passion that you just spoke about, and to help keep the momentum and take them to the next level. So I mean, how are you guys finding it over there in America? We're obviously in London, or I'm in Brighton today. But how are you guys finding it over there in America?
yeah. So, I think it's hard for me to have context because I've been stuck in my house. So, like, I don't really know how to compare it to anywhere else right now, other than I've seen the videos of the grocery stores being empty. And luckily,
Yeah,
my grocery store is not empty. There's like
yeah,
a couple sections that are, you know, empty in that one particular product, but then there's other options for the product. So your favorite item might be gone, but like you could choose a different brand right now. I think that there's a lot of businesses that are having a hard time, and I definitely know that like lower class in terms of economic, lower economic class Americans are struggling because they were relying on this next paycheck that they're like not going to get now. And even with whatever type of government assistance that there's going to be, I think a lot of people don't know how to access that, even when it's disseminated in a very wide fashion. Like a lot of people just aren't going to have the knowledge to access the help that they need. So I think it really does come up to a lot of private businesses and I've been seeing a lot of this. So I think that that's a really great thing, is a lot of business owners who are in a position to help are helping. And people who are in positions to help are helping. So like I know with, I think of all the ways that I can help. One is with information and, telling people about opportunities they might not know about that could help get them through this time. Another is like on a very small community level. I own a duplex, so I'm a landlord and have renters. So like giving them a little bit of leniency on their rent because, if they're short on their paycheck this next month, like working with them on that and not making them like freak out about losing their living situation, and letting them focus on helping the community in the ways that they can, I think is really, we can all help in very, I think, small but powerful ways. So focusing on how you can help, especially if you're feeling really stressed about your own situation, not only is going to make you feel 10 times better, but it'll help you get a momentum of some kind going for people to support you, for good things to happen to you, because good things do come with momentum. And it's really hard to have good things start happening for you from a place of like being stalled or of zero. So just make something good happen for you, whether that's you helping someone else out or learning something new that you can use the next day or that day, I think can be really powerful for people.
Yeah, I think if everyone can do that by sharing information online on social media, sharing some of the wins that they've had, whether they've been through the 2008 economic crash before. So there's lots of panic and fear around. I
Right.
understand this is different because the banks ran out of money then. This is a different type of correction or crash or, economic failure. But I mean, I've seen lots of posts on social media from people that have, been here for a while,
Right.
online, and what they're sharing and the value that people are getting with just those little things that it might take somebody 10 years to learn
Yes.
about something you said with the emoji, which turns into, helping somebody else or giving them the confidence to do that little one thing, which might lead to 100 more followers and 10 more direct messages and then 2 more clients or their
Exactly.
first if they're now working from home. And that is like the aha moment, just something which for someone like yourself who's been doing it a very long time, these are just the things you do every day.
Right.
But for someone who doesn't know them, it's the unlock, it's the breakthrough, it's the turning point, it's the bit that might actually save them. And
Yeah.
it's just a little paragraph of, instead of doing that, just do this little one thing. And I'm seeing lots of people which are online in the communities. I mean, I'm in the, or heavily invested in the property industry here in
Right.
London, England, and got various different portfolios of properties. So I'm a landlord, and then an investor, and then in some other portfolios. And for example, we've got in one portfolio that we have, there's about 52, 53 tenants on that one portfolio. And there's probably about 13, 15 of them already
Hmm.
that have said they're not getting the salary next month.
Right.
They've got no lifeline. They have no savings. They're
Yeah.
living month to
Yeah.
month. They have no idea what they're going to do. So we're trying to work with them now to find some solutions
Yeah.
because obviously they won't have the money for the rent.
But like you
Um,
need it, like you need the money, you have to the bill to pay. So it's
no, that's the
a
thing.
sticky situation for sure. But I think, someone like you're probably in a much more fortunate position than your tenants to be able to reach out to people, to be able to come up with those creative solutions that, you know, help everyone get through this time, and at the same time builds a really strong, I think, connection between everyone involved. So I think we can all agree as human beings, when we go through tough times together, it really bonds us. And there's almost nothing better for your business than to have super loyal, deeply bonded customers that are going to really be with you for life, and that are going to talk about you in scenarios that even have nothing to do with your business. I think especially that's really important. And I realized that through my glassblowing business, is glassblowing doesn't come up in conversation very often. Now,
No,
with
very unique.
with stoners, it comes up a little more because they're like, "Oh, cool, where'd you get that cool glass pipe?" And then it comes up. But you have to be a person people want to talk about. Or if you don't want to be in the spot, your brand has to be a person that people want to talk about. So people have to stop thinking about their business as this inanimate object. And I think really start thinking about, who is your brand in your business as a person? If it was a person and it had a body and it had its own soul, what is the soul of that business? And really start speaking to that soul of your business to be able to connect and bond your customers in like a much more deep way, to where it's not even about your business anymore. It's about, how do we help, Maayan succeed? What do we got to do to make her and her business and her life successful, so she can spread more positivity and help the community more, and, make this world a better place? And that level of support, I think, is really, really achievable through social media. And that's why I focus, even when I have, I would say, some money to put into paid advertising, I would still focus on some type of marketing tactic that would deepen my organic reach or deepen my connection with my current customers.
Okay, yeah, I understand. It makes sense, and everything that you just said, and the times that we're in right now, I think lots of people less fortunate are looking for that bit of guidance, or looking to be led a little bit, or
Hmm.
shown the the way out or a solution. So obviously, what you're doing on social media, sharing what's worked for you, and successes and the failures, and the unlocks, and the hacks and the quick wins. So many people are, um, really, really benefiting from that. And I mean, it must explain how you've got, obviously, to where you are with 2.3 million, interested people following you across the platforms. And yeah, I mean, just tell us about how you even got to. Well, let's start at the end, which is the latest one. Let's start on TikTok,
Yep.
for example, because that's quite new to people. Lots of people don't know about it. Obviously, it started as Musically, and you've got a huge following. I think 1.7 million followers to do with just
Yeah.
your glass blowing alone. So
Yes.
how did that start? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, and to also clarify, so almost all of my followers, period, come from TikTok out of that 2.3. So I have another account on TikTok. It's
So 500,000.
yes, that's at
Yeah,
almost 600,000 now.
yeah,
And that one's all food. It's
yeah.
mostly desserts. There's some, I'm peppering in fruit now, because I'm like, let's see if people like healthy things as well. They do. Good thing. Good news. People still like fruit. Um, but
It's a joy of food, isn't it?
yes, joy of food,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I hopped onto TikTok after hearing Gary Vee talk about it for months on end, and my organic reach on Instagram had just stopped. It completely plateaued. I wasn't gaining new followers anymore. And so I was testing out a few different platforms. I was trying out a membership site called Patreon, which is for creators of all kinds. I was trying out Pinterest. I was trying Facebook, kind of, more again, putting more back into it. And then I hopped onto TikTok, and the first 2 weeks,
When was that? When would you say that was when you hopped
that
onto
was
TikTok?
late August,
Okay.
or mid to late August. And I was just posting like a video a day, seeing what was happening. I was intrigued right off the bat because the first videos I posted got like hundreds of views, which on Instagram it wouldn't work that way. If you had 0 followers, you'd like maybe get like 1 or 2,
Yeah.
but like you're not going to get hundreds. Um, and so I was like, okay, let me just keep posting and maybe I'll learn things observationally, because it was very confusing to me to understand what was going on or how it worked. And whenever that I'm in a scenario where I don't understand what's going on, always for me, I just need more data. So like I just don't have enough information. So I realized I don't have enough information to understand the app yet. So like post more and watch more videos. That's how you get more information. So I was doing that. And then 2 weeks in, very, very quickly, I had a video that, it was blowing up my phone, and I was boop, 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 boop. And I was like, what's going on? And it was getting, millions of views. And this was a video of a glass blowing group of artists who were making a turtle, like a very large, realistic sea turtle. And people thought it was a real turtle, and so they were commenting like, no, I can't believe you're murdering a turtle. And then other people knew it was glass, and so they were like, it's just a glass turtle. There was like a battle in the comments about whether or not this was, PETA, requiring PETA's assistance or not. And so that was a huge amount of incentive. Like I'd never before then gotten a video that did 1 million+ views. So I was like, this is fun, yay. And, of course, wanted to figure out how to make that happen again. And so, started doing more research, started looking more in depth, did a couple more videos that did not millions of views, but like, tens of thousands. I was like, this is a fun game. Like the way social medias have all created themselves are by using, gamification and reward properties. So social media is fun because you get rewarded for using it via likes and validation and like points, right? Like how many views you got, that's how many points you got. Woo, I won the game. I got the most points. Yeah. So I was like, this is a fun app. I like it. And so I started posting more videos, and then I had an idea. I was like, I bet that turtle video did super, super well because it tapped like into how Save the Turtles, and that turtle, the picture with the turtle and the straw up its nose had just come out, it was being recirculated, I think. And I was like, maybe it's because there was so much attention around the thing in the video. I went, okay, what's coming up? Halloween. And it was right before October. So it was like August 30th or 31st. I don't know, days of the month. Yeah. And I was like, maybe I'll post this this glass pumpkin video, and I'll caption it to create more controversy. Because again, I was like, it was also the controversy in the comments. People like thinking, this is a real turtle, and then arguing, no, it's not a real turtle. So I was like, let me ask a question that's going to generate a similar controversy. So I thought, okay, let me post the pumpkin the day before October and ask people, is it too early to get excited for Halloween? Because I thought that would be for kids like a very controversial thing. Like, no, it's too early, or like, no, I love Halloween. And I pretty much nailed it on the head. That video did like 20 million+ views. Wow. And I realized through that not only was I right about this attention factor, but also that Halloween is by far the biggest holiday in the world. It gains more attention than Christmas does because it's not, religiously, even though it is religiously based from a long time ago. It's a holiday about expression now. It's like dress up and be who you want to be and have fun and, connect on this fun, awesome night of freedom. And so all around the world, it's just hugely, hugely popular, both with kids because of like all the trick-or-treating stuff, and then adults love to go out and party and dress up and be like kids, or like feel, youthful again. And so it just tapped into this massive amount of attention, and I just squeezed the orange. So I went, that worked. Let me do that again. Did a number of more pumpkin videos that allowed me to gain 600,000 followers in October alone. And then kind of just, I would say relatively, I rode that momentum all the way up to 1.7 million. And now I'm trying to figure out, new either what's coming up that I can make that really amazing pairing of like content with attention that's going around, but also
definitely timing of what's going on in the world.
Yes, timing's huge.
What's topical, and then a video around that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, both let that swish around in my head, and if the dots connect, the dots connect. I'm not necessarily trying to put a lot of my time or energy into planning that out, because I think there's so many more things you can learn off of TikTok. So I think that what's happened in the past, let's say 8 months, is at first people were like, what is this glass blowing thing? Huge amount of interest. The Blown Away show had come out a couple months before, or like relatively more recently than now when it's been more than a year. And so people were like, awesome, what's this cool glass blowing thing I've never seen? And then people were like, cool, cool, cool. And now they're like, I've seen glass blowing. Because as human beings, we're very addicted to new things, and we love things that we've never seen before that are like visually awesome. And glass blowing fit into that. But now, once you've seen, let's say, 100 of my glass blowing videos, it's much less like amazing to you anymore. So I have to figure out new ways to make it as amazing. So one way I figured out, and I don't have access to a studio that I could do this in a kind of a repeatable way yet, but in the summer I will. But using glass blowing to cook food, it's like combining my two accounts. I love it so much. So I've done several videos. One where they're using hot glass to grill a sandwich. And
Really?
that one's at like 8 or 10 million views. Another one where they snipped a piece of hot glass and put a coffee pot on it and boiled coffee. That one also did, millions of views. I think there's a couple other ones where there's food involved, and those are always really, really popular because people, they've seen cooking and they've seen glass blowing, but they've never seen cooking with glass blowing.
Yeah.
So, I think it's just coming up with creative ideas, squeezing them as much as you can, and then figuring out, how do I make this even better now? And that's a really fun, endless process, I think.
It definitely is very exciting for the creators, and it's a fantastic platform app exactly for that. It's got completely different characteristics to, from coming from Facebook and then coming from Instagram. It's very authentic, I would say.
Yes.
And it's very pure and new.
Yeah.
So it's free for all. Everything is accepted on there, and
it doesn't even have to be a good video. I thought this was so funny. The video it showed me on my For You page, I don't know, yesterday. It was someone took a yellow peep and he put it in the microwave, and then he put his phone right against the microwave, and it had that that grating that microwaves have, so you can only see if you press your face really close to it. And it was a terrible video because most of it's grating, but the peep is just expanding, and it has tens of millions of views because just people right, the attention factor. So tidbit, Easter's coming up, so I don't know when this will come out, but if this is coming out anytime soon, tap into Easter and the attention around Easter. No matter what your business is, you can find some way to tap into the attention that's already going to be existing in any area, and then kind of pull it in your direction. So I think that's a really great way for, businesses on any level. You have to be hesitant because, for example, if you're going to do that with coronavirus, that would be the most obvious thing to do it with. It can be seen as you being inauthentic, or you taking advantage of a bad situation, and you don't want people to perceive you that way. If you actually are in a bad situation, definitely share that, because again, that can bond you to your customers, and it'll also just open up more resources. No one can help you if you're not asking for help, in essence. But if you're just struggling and don't necessarily need desperate help, think about creatively maybe other sources of attention that you can tap into, because not only will it make it easier for you to get sales or customers or help, but it'll also make you seem really clever. And anytime you can make you or your business appear very clever, people will want to do business with you. We want to do business with smart people because they're smart. I mean, it's pretty yeah, especially if they're already if you're oh, they're solving this problem, they're going to be able to come up with more solutions to other problems. So I would think about, even in your local community, is there something happening locally that you can tap into and kind of support or start contributing to, that will give you something back in return as well, whether that's attention or connections. It doesn't have to be that the things you're doing right now are to get a sale. It could be like a 3-step remove process. I'm going to help someone who then tells their friend, who then talks to me, and then I get a sale.
And the same, obviously, using TikTok for exactly that.
Yes.
Some people will think it's very young. Obviously, it's aged up quickly, which we know looking at the demographics. But some people think, well, let's say they do everything that you just said, which is fantastic. Some tips and some unlocks and getting the attention and being topical and at the right time. If somebody said, okay, that's great when they see all of these videos on TikToks that have got all of these views, but then their next question might be, how can they make the most of that attention? So, what would you suggest to someone who gets 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 or even
Yeah.
several million views like your videos? How would they go about thinking of using the influence or using the comments or using that group of people to do something else they're trying to achieve, or it's branding or
Yeah.
find customers or help more people? How would they go about the next step?
That's the most fun part, you guys. If you get there, it's not even like, yes, it's fun to get the views, but what's cooler is to like get opportunities and business out of it. So
Yeah.
like what I say to that is leverage the fuck out of it. Basically, like anything that you do well, you can leverage to bring you more opportunities, to bring you more success, to bring you more people and more attention. So whether that's as small as I just got a video on my page that did 10,000 views. Again, talking against tens of millions doesn't sound like a lot, but depending on your category, if there's a bunch of people who have 0 views or don't have an account, or they're trying and they're getting 10 views on their videos, and you're like, what's up, guys? I just made a video that you want to make and I got 10,000 views. They're going to be like, what? Tell us all about it.
Oh,
Who are
pause a
you?
little bit there.
Like, oh, sorry about that. Where did I cut off?
Is your connection
Oh,
okay?
sorry about that. Are we
Just
still
had a
good?
little glitch.
Let me jump in real quick. For all of the entrepreneurs listening right now, I know you're looking for strategies and tactics to increase your income, maybe even to get you out of that 9 to 5 that you hate so you get to spend more time with your family. I get that. And I want to be responsible for helping all of you guys achieve that. So I want to give you a free gift, which is a copy of my ebook. It's called the Ryan Otto Rent Arbitrage Machine. Now, it's a training manual that I had my team create, which takes you through the exact steps that I took after spending nearly 5 years in prison for a crime committed by a lifelong friend, to then start over from £175,000 in debt with no money, no list, and no help. Now, what I share in this ebook is single-handedly responsible for turning every £1,000 of rent that I paid to a landlord into £3,000 of income every single month in my business. Now that leaves me with a gross profit of around £2,000 per calendar month for every property that I can go and rent from a landlord. Right now, I'm giving away this ebook. It's 100% free. All you need to do to get a copy is subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, leave a 5-star review, and email a screen print of that review to my team at teamryan@theybuyanyhome.com, and we'll get a copy of the Rent Arbitrage Machine to you guys.
Here we go. So we're back online with that little glitch. And obviously the problems and challenges in the world of internet technology, broadband right now, all the networks are jammed, everyone's at home, and like New Year's Eve every single day. So a little technical glitch there, but we'll continue where we left off now. So if you carry on and probably when you've got all of the attention on TikTok and the videos are having hundreds of views or thousands or millions like some of yours, how does somebody go about making the most of that attention?
Yeah, so you want to leverage it. So it's really great to have the attention directly on TikTok, the platform, but you can then use your success on that platform to get attention literally anywhere else that you would like. So for me, that's on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn also happens to have really great organic reach right now. And it's all business people. And I want to do business with other business people, other really, really successful people. I want to create connections that, level up my network so that I can really learn the things that I don't know, or that I don't even know I need to know right now to reach the level of success that I truly want. So, for you though, it might be you want a specific store to pick up your product, or you want to to do business with a specific influencer. Like you think, oh man, if this influencer would let us use, or like, use their image or partner with us on the design of this product, that we would blow it out the water because our product is like perfect for their customer base. You having that video and that attention that did really, really well as leverage to even get a message back from them is incredibly helpful. Because, people who are successful are hard to reach. Like everyone wants to talk to successful people and do business with successful people. So you have to have something that makes you, stand out, or that grabs their attention. And your own success in an area where they are not successful is one of the best ways to do that. Especially if they can perceive that way would be useful to them. Like if they want to be successful in that area.
Yeah, that's a really good bit to add there, because I think most people understand that if they're not ready for TikTok yet, somebody else that's got lots of success on there, lots of followers, lots of influence, I think logically they know in their mind that this is how Facebook started.
Yeah.
This is how Instagram started, where people thought Facebook was just for kids. And then people have built multi-million, billion-pound businesses on the back of Facebook alone. So I think if they're not on there now, then they value that a lot, thinking you've cracked the code like you clearly have on TikTok, and they know that's somewhere where they need to be in the future. So would you say if someone has got some influence on that app, they literally use that like on LinkedIn, or just some screen prints, or share some of the stories? Because some people are saying this is LinkedIn, this isn't TikTok, but people are now just hitting the share button on TikTok and sending it lots of different places, and now it's getting recognized by smarter people who understand that this is the way they need to go. So are you saying anyone who's got any clout or weight on that particular app should just be sharing that on their other social platforms to leverage that credibility?
Yeah. So, and when I say share, I mean share what's happening on that platform. I don't mean necessarily share the content directly. So there is an important distinction there, because the content that does well on TikTok might not be perceived or do well on LinkedIn without a context that people want to see. So, for example, let's take dancing videos. That's kind of the one most people are talking about, is that they don't want to see dancing videos even on TikTok, but especially not on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't suggest sharing your dancing videos to LinkedIn unless there was one in particular where it had a business outcome for you, or you could tie it some way into business. Because then again, I think people are go, oh, that's actually really clever. I never thought about a dancing video as something that could generate sales for me. But it has to be very kind of contextualized. So I think the better way to do it is to talk about, like you said, take a screenshot and highlight the parts of the screenshot that you want people to focus on. Instead of just showing them a picture of them dancing, you're showing them, look, here's the numbers I want you to pay attention to from this video. And then it's more of like, a graphic for them to look at versus the video itself. And then it's, you talking about like why you did that, what you got out of it, how it could be used by other people. Those are like generally the things people are interested in, is why did you do that? How did it help you? And how could I do something similar that helps me get what I want?
Okay, well, clearly you're dominating TikTok at the moment. So I think we've given obviously the audience listening to this right now, or whatever platform they watch this, listen to this on, lots of nuggets of information there about, that's just one platform that you're having a huge success on, which is TikTok. So I think there's lots of takeaways for them to take now of having like a strategy, having the unlocks, and finding out what's worked for you that they can now replicate. I think if we said, obviously LinkedIn, how would you say, or where did you get the momentum on LinkedIn, and what should people be doing just to think further down the line they could come, even be half as successful as you are on LinkedIn? I mean, what way should that person go if they're thinking, I'm new to LinkedIn, or I've got 200 followers and no articles? What should I be doing just to get the foundations in? What would you say?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing to be successful on any of these platforms is you have to find your motivation. So for me on TikTok, it was a different motivation than it was on LinkedIn. On TikTok, my motivation came from numbers. Like the fact that I was getting millions of anything or thousands of, comments or hearts, whatever it was. To me, that was a fun game to play. Now on LinkedIn, I was playing a different game and motivated by a different thing. And that was the ability to connect with other real people who were either more successful than me or at the same level of success, but in a completely different field of expertise. Whether that's like being a doctor or whether that's being a children's camp counselor. But that people on LinkedIn in general want to be high achievers, or that they care about their own personal and business growth, which is very different. No other platform has that inherent kind of trait amongst the users. So when I got on LinkedIn, I had something very interesting to share right away, which was what was happening on TikTok. So I think to start yourself gaining momentum from zero, you have to share the most interesting thing about you that you can think about in a context that LinkedIn's going to that the community is going to go, oh, who are you? And like, we want to hear more and we want to engage with you right away. Because I was able to do that, and on my first couple posts, I got comments from these people, and like, I'm just very curious by nature. So when people were commenting, I would click and I'd be like, oh, who's this person? And I'd read their, description and their about section, and I'd be like, wow, this person's like really, really cool. They've done a lot of really interesting things in their life. And that was happening for like every person who was commenting. I was like, this is a really cool platform. Like all the people on this platform are really, really interesting and doing really interesting things. And so that became my motivation on LinkedIn is, let me find out all these interesting, cool things that are happening and connect with all these interesting people. Versus on TikTok, I just don't have the ability to connect as deeply with people or see who they are or learn about them in an observational way the way I can by looking at a LinkedIn profile. But I can, gain a lot of attention, or I can move mass amounts of kind of emotion or attention in a way that I can't do necessarily, or I haven't figured out how to do yet on LinkedIn.
Okay, I see. And I think from that, people might be thinking, who's listening to this right now, if they haven't got like the start that you had, for example, on TikTok, if they're just really just starting out, everybody said you need to be on LinkedIn. It's got the best organic reach. If you're not on TikTok, if they're just starting out, is there any quick wins or anything they should be doing?
So share your struggles. If you start off right away sharing your struggles and vulnerabilities, and there's not a single one of you listening that hasn't gone through something really hard in your life, like that's the human condition, is we go through some tough shit. And to have overcome the things that you've overcome in your life, even if you diminish them, other people won't. They'll have a lot of respect for not only what you've been through, but the fact that you're willing to share it, and that vulnerability strength that you have in knowing that even if someone were to say something or judge you poorly from what you're sharing, that doesn't touch you, because that's not why you're sharing it. And the why always outweighs the people who don't see your why, I would say. And so when you can really figure out something that supports your why, whether that's I want to inspire people, or I want to help other people who've been in a similar situation that I was, or I just want people to know that I'm a real human being and to see me as someone like that when I do become really successful, and not to just kind of, shit on me all the time because I'm doing really well and I make it seem like my life's awesome. I think those are all things that connect us and will give you a great start on LinkedIn. But, if you just start and you're posting information without any personality or without any human factor, it's going to be really hard to pick up momentum, because LinkedIn is full of great information. And on any social media platform, you have to remember that you are competing with everyone else for attention. So if someone else is writing more interesting things or more connective things than you are, the algorithm is going to decide to show them that content and not your content. And even if it did show them your content, they would not want to engage with it, because they'd be thinking, oh, well, it wasn't that great compared to the other post I just read.
Okay, I see. It makes sense. There's quite a science behind it as well, with being contextual from TikTok to LinkedIn, and then what you say and how you say it.
Yes.
You say that just comes to someone from just practicing and starting off with no following, no reach, and airing their, well, maybe not opinions, but their challenges and struggles, like you said, and then just learning their own writing style. Would you
Yes,
say that's
absolutely. Yeah, so we each have our own voice, and developing that voice into one that connects with people in the way that you want it to is absolutely a skill. No one's born with that skill. Even people who seem like they're really naturally good speakers, it's because they did spend a lot of time observing how people were interacting with them when they spoke, and if they were, engaging or getting the right type of connection that they were desiring. Now, that develops differently for us into adulthood, because naturally we have different levels of interest in paying attention to that. So, for example, I have always been more interested in paying attention to my emotions and other people's emotions and how words play into that, because I had a lot of experiences in childhood where maybe someone said something to me that really hurt my feelings, or where in the opposite circumstance, they said something that was worded in just the right way to actually make me feel really, really good. And that always fascinated me, because maybe I had that contrast of not having that all the time. Versus someone who maybe grew up with a great group of friends and never had to pay attention as much to how they were feeling because it was always pretty great, might not have developed that same level of awareness to their words as there's just all these different scenarios we go through as human beings that create frameworks for our mind. So I think it's important first for you to spend a little bit of time thinking, how well am I connected to what I say? Like, do I do a good job of, if I want to get a message across, communicating it and getting the exact result I'm looking for? Because we'll all have different levels of that. And then to, piggyback on that, for everyone, it's like a lifelong learning skill. So it's not something you're just going to be good at. Social media in general is not something that you're going to hop on and from day zero see a lot of success in general. It's going to take you months and most likely years to develop the skills and start recognizing what really works for you and what really doesn't work for you, to be able to start to effectively build that momentum. So for me, right, I was on Instagram for 8 years, never got more than 40,000 followers on. I have two accounts that each have 40,000, but never got more than 40,000 followers over 8 years. Hopped onto TikTok, applied the skills that I learned on Instagram, and within 2 weeks had, like 100,000 followers. So don't look at it as a straight line of momentum. I think that all of us should really look at learning and skill set as a hockey stick curve, because there is a certain level you get past, and all of a sudden everything you're doing has a 10x effect compared to what you were doing before. And now it's all building on top of itself and it snowballs. So think about how you can get to that skill level versus how you can get to a certain number. If you have the skill, the numbers are easy. If you don't have the skill, the numbers are always a lottery, and you don't want to play the lottery game because most of us lose.
Yeah, that makes great sense. That's like fire that you just shared there. I think anybody listening to this or watching this will really appreciate all the giving and the advice and the tips and the quick wins and the hacks that they call them now, which you're just what you're doing each day. And it's obviously it's like just documenting the journey that you've had, so other people can follow that. So I think they're going to get huge value from every single part of this this interview, this podcast, this conversation, because there's just so much that you fit in already with just what you're saying about the different platforms and being contextual and how they work and the do's and don'ts. So I think it's huge value. So yeah, I could keep you on it.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd say my last piece of advice would really be like, it's overwhelming. Like, we live in an overwhelming digital world now. It's come on very quickly. Like, we all just got flip phones a couple years ago, and now we have like computers in our pocket, and the computer's getting smarter and smarter and like learning what we want. And it's a little scary. It's a little overwhelming. So if that's how you feel on any level, the way that I would say to combat that, and I feel that way too sometimes in terms of what I want to learn, like when I think about, I want to learn about all the different software options that are available for video editing, because I'd love to be someone who, when I'm talking to creators or businesses or anyone who's going to use video, to say, oh, this editor app, and this editor app would be very specifically good for you. I think that'd be awesome for me to be able to make those recommendations. But there's like thousands of them, and to learn all the different things about each one can feel and seem very overwhelming. And the way to combat that is just start with one. Pick one thing, pay attention to only that one thing, and learn to start putting your mind into an observational mindset, or an observational mode, is what I call it, where you're focused on, because you're only focused on one singular task that only takes up a small percentage of your thought capacity. You then have at least some part of your conscious and all of your subconscious to float around and think about other things, which sometimes for us we'll experience, that's called daydreaming, right? When you're not controlling that floaty and subconscious level of thinking, you often will just randomly start picturing, a good time you had, or, we daydream about all sorts of things. But when you can learn to control the area of your brain in which that creativity is happening, because that's just a level of creativity, right? Your brain is like, we've got this extra brain power, we're not using it, we got to do something with it. So you start creating a visual, or you start, creating a memory and bringing it to the forefront of your brain. You can put that energy or that kind of interaction in a specific part of your brain where it's only observing or making observations based off that one singular task you're doing. So, for example, I do this with glass blowing. I'll take a very simple piece and I'll make that piece over and over and over again. And I'm not paying attention to each step of the process. Instead, I've just got observation mode on. And because I'm doing it repetitively, this allows my brain to notice things. And it's a strange thing if you haven't experienced it yet, but you won't know what the things you're going to notice are until after you've noticed them. But it sparks new levels of creativity. It allows you to control, I would say, more aspects of your focus. So there's all sorts of different levels of focus we have, and realizing how much focus you're committing at any given time to your work or to your task is an important part of social media and in business in general, because social media is one of those things we all experience. We start out in work mode and then it sucks us in, and all of a sudden 5 hours later we're like, oh no, cat videos, I did it again. So learning to control that part of your brain is, I think, one of the most important things with being successful on social media. And that's something that you can do by starting out with one very specific task at a time. So if you're thinking about jumping on a bunch of social medias, just pick one, because you'll observe many more things that'll help you across all social media platforms from focusing on one platform than if you were on 3 platforms and trying to learn. Like, intuitively, it doesn't make sense. You think, oh, I could learn more about all of social media if I have 3 platforms to learn from. But that's not how it is, because all of social media is trying to do the same thing in different ways. All of the platforms have the same goal, which is to have the most number of users and to have those users be the most happy users, because that's why they'd want to be on the platform. So thinking about that in your singular platform that you're interacting on will give you much, much more insight into how to be successful on social media than trying to figure out, oh, well, how does Facebook work versus how does Instagram work differently versus how does TikTok work differently? Pick one, learn it really well, and then you'll be inherently good at the rest of them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's some fantastic advice there for everybody listening. I'm thinking it'd be very difficult for you to answer this question, but you might have a broad answer for it, because unless you're sitting with the one individual, so it's contextual.
Right.
Somebody starting out, is there a particular platform they should try and hone their skills on first? Like, one's got the most amount of reach so they could get the leverage, and then do something similar to you and take that to the business arena, but start on the
Yeah.
TikTok or start on the Instagram with pictures if they're just starting out? What would you suggest? Is it where the reach is and the attention is? Or
Yeah, so like you said, that's definitely contextual. I would say it really depends on, are you trying to use social media to get something or to learn something? There's like, because social media it's a tool, and you can use it to get attention and to get followers and to get views and to get likes, to get sales, or you can use it simply as a learning tool to learn about how people think, to learn. And I do think that yes, there's a lot of crossover, but inherently very different strategies and different platforms. So if you're trying to get attention, if you're trying to get sales, something you can leverage, TikTok is absolutely the best thing to start with. And then if you are successful on TikTok, again, you can take that to any platform and leverage it. You can take that in person to anyone and leverage it. Like people are interested in TikTok. Even people who aren't on TikTok are still interested in like why you're on TikTok and what you're doing with it as an adult human being. And so that's one area. If you're looking to learn about how people think, and especially when they're using social media, I really still think Instagram or Facebook, but I like Instagram because I use it more, is one of the best places where you can start to understand customer behavior and psychology and how people interact differently on different apps or in different, I call them mental environments. So each app has its own mental environment, the same way a restaurant has its own decor and its own physical environment. And when you enter a social media app, you inherently, your brain goes into a specific mindset that the app has helped to prime. Same way when you go into a Hawaiian barbecue joint and they have, palm trees and like leis and flowers out, you feel like the way that they want you to feel, like relaxed and happy and, hungry. So it's learning to understand this portion in conjunction with then the responses people have. So I think a lot about social media like a science lab or science experiments, like the different interactions you're having are all science experiments. So to think about what are the control factors of any social media, one of them is going to be the environment. So all platforms have environment, and it's going to be one of the main factors that determines the outcome of the experiment, right? You could have an experiment, but if you have it in this solution versus this solution, you get completely different results in science. Same thing with social media or platforms or mental environments. You can perform an experiment, which would be a post, let's say, or a whole campaign on Facebook, and you're going to get a completely different outcome than if you perform that campaign on TikTok. And that is very largely due to the fact that the environments start out being different. Now, often the components tend to be a little bit different too, like the format of the video or the caption might be different. So those would be the components or the elements of the experiment. But that environment is so crucial, and I think a lot of people completely ignore and glaze over that fact that the way you mentally are engaged with Facebook is completely different than the way you're mentally engaged with TikTok. And I think learning that is very, very useful to business. And to me, that's more interesting. And so that's why I still spend a lot of time on Instagram, engaging with customers and trying to think about marketing strategies that would work on Instagram, because I'm going to learn a lot from that I wouldn't be able to learn through TikTok.
okay, with that engagement, like you're saying, and how you're spending your time between those different apps and platforms, somebody might be thinking, when you're doing all the engagement and talking and answering questions, when would they, if they're trying to build a business or build a brand or sell a product, when would they sort of ask for the sale? When does it go from just talking and answering questions without it being buy my thing, buy my thing?
Yeah.
Buy
So
my
I think
thing.
that it's a lot harder than ever to say buy my thing outside of paid advertising. So I think that we've been trained over the past 5 years, let's say, that we don't want to buy things from people who are selling us but not selling us. We actually prefer now a blatant advertisement if it's the thing that we want. So let's say that I've been doing Google searches in my phone for a brush for my dogs. That's, and I've been doing research. And so my phone knows this. And now when I'm on TikTok, it shows me because TikTok does have paid. So let's not use TikTok because people that aren't as familiar. On Facebook, I'm scrolling through Facebook and it shows me, a video of the Furminator, which is a dog brush. And it's very much a blatant advertisement for the Furminator, being like, here's the Furminator. It gets all the hair off your dog. It's so wonderful. Get 2 for $19.99. I'm going to go, sweet. That's exactly what I want. That's what I've been looking for. And it's showing it to me in the context I want, which is I was looking to buy it. It's not showing it into the context of, look, I think you want to be entertained, but I'm trying to sell you something. And so I think that there's a real big shift happening between what used to be influencer marketing, which incorporated direct paid advertising of the influencer just saying, hey, buy this thing. I think you should go buy it. It's great. To now influencer marketing completely being a branding tactic where the influencers are saying, hey, here's this thing. I like it. And never saying, go buy it, but maybe saying, if you're interested to go buy it, here's a link. Or like, if you guys want it, send me a DM. Or just even waiting for people to do the action themselves. So creating enough compelling content or compelling emotion that people are like, I have to have that. And now they're looking and they're like, maybe this link gets me it, or maybe I send them a message, or maybe I Google it now. That's becoming much, much more effective than an influencer saying, check out these Nike shoes, go buy them. I really like them. And I think that instead, seeing an advertisement for Nike shoes that's really shows off the exact value props of that product in the exact time when you are wanting the solution, that's how we are liking to be advertised to. And that for it's hard to get that through organic. So I would really separate organic advertising from paid advertising if I were trying to start a business, and I would come up with completely separate tactics for each. So I would never ever incorporate a paid advertising tactic into my organic. And when I say never, never, I do actually experiment with this. So anything I say, only do this, always experiment. Always experiment at least 1% of the time to see your own results. But in general, I think it's much more effective to build brand through organic advertising or organic posting, and then to try and convert sales through paid advertising. And if your business model relies very, very heavily on kind of conversions off of advertising, then you're in danger and you really need to work on the branding side of your business, because at some point, whatever system you've built, even if it's working so phenomenally, let's say you crush it on Facebook ads, like you put in $1,000, you get 10,000 in revenue and 5,000 in profit every single time. That will change in your lifetime. That will not stay the same. It will absolutely change at some point. And if you don't have the brand kind of building and the brand side of selling to rely on, where people are coming to you because they love your branding so much, then it's much harder to survive during those times.
I think that makes sense, especially
like
now.
Yeah.
Because, for example, we're heavily invested in property here in England, so we're in all the chat rooms and the groups and things like that, the private networking things. And for example, there's 2 websites, Airbnb and Booking.com, where landlords have got the property or bought the property or leased the property, put it on there. That company just takes 15 to 20% commission. They just leave it there and it fills their property up with guests all year round. Obviously, what's just happened, there's no travelers. There's travel restrictions, travel bans. They have no brand. They haven't done anything to do with direct bookings. It's just a website or an app that brings 100 or 98% of the revenue.
That's a really great example, because imagine, I think this is actually so for most of these Airbnb places, it's going to be really negative for them But for the ones who did take the time to build out a website, or a Google listing, like whatever it is they did on their own to create their own brand, if they did a good job and even have, 10 to 20 customers who would come in during this time, they can send out a campaign to those people. They can market directly to those people in a way that probably not only helps them get through this time, but maybe boosts their business during this time, because other people are much more wary. Like, for example, if I was going to go book travel right now, because let's say I had to, or I had to go visit family, or like for whatever the reason, people are still traveling, right? That I wouldn't trust a random Airbnb site. Like, I don't know them. I don't know how clean it is. I don't know what precautions they're going to take. But if I already had visited an Airbnb and they marketed to me to go to their own website, and I was like someone who visited their website because it had extra value or whatever reason, that they could have something on their website, or again, if they had my email, that they could send me an email saying, hey, just letting you guys know we're open for business still. And like, here are all the extra things that we're doing to make sure that your stay is going to be amazing. We want you to feel super comfortable. We want you to reach out to us. That would certainly be enough, especially if I'd already been to that place one time and had a good time there. I would be like, sweet, this is the solution to my problem. Like, I'm absolutely going to this place, and I'm going to tell other people, hey, just so you know, if you're going to be in this area in the next month, this place will really take care of you. It's a safe place to stay. And like, the people who do it are really great. You're going to have a great time. So I think that branding is one of those X factors that in tough times can actually be something that gives you added leverage and added advantage over your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lots of people take away, lots of good information, good content from what you've been sharing. It's been fantastic having you here for an hour or so, however long we've been going, more than an hour. It's been ideal, and we've literally just more or less scratched the surface on two of those platforms. We could spend a whole day going through each one individually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think if I said to you before we get to the end of this podcast, if I said to you, if, say, for example, you had to completely start over tomorrow morning on social media, let's say you had no list that you built up, if you had none of the connections that you've got, etc. If you literally had to start over tomorrow online, knowing everything you know, where would you go, or where would you start? What platform would it be? And then what strategy, or what would you do? Because I think lots of people would get some value from that.
Yeah, definitely. So if I had to completely start over from scratch, I think the platform I would start with for me would be LinkedIn, because I have a lot of knowledge and really interesting experiences to share. And for me, that's where kind of my target audience is for my end goals. So I'm a very multifaceted person. Yes, I love glass blowing, but I also love business and entrepreneurship. I also love dogs. Like, I have a lot of interests, and my interests are all very, very deep. So right now in my life, I'm getting the most happiness and being able to provide the most value, which I think is tied to the happiness factor, by sharing those experiences and that knowledge that I've accumulated with people who can do the most with it. So on Instagram, I've been sharing my knowledge and experiences for the past, 8 years. And I've helped out a lot of people, but not in the way that I've been able to help out quite a few more people on LinkedIn in a deeper way, in a much shorter amount of time, like a 10x, 8 months instead of 8 years. I've probably helped at least the same number of people or more through LinkedIn in a more profound way, I think. So it's about finding your audience. And my audience is on LinkedIn. So that's where I would start from scratch. And how I would start is I would start posting about my most interesting experiences first. So if you feel that you're someone who's not very interesting, I've actually been thinking about this, because a lot of people who I talk to, they're like, that's cool, you have a glass blowing business. I don't. Like, what do I do? I'm an accountant. I'm so-and-so. And I think really the answer is have a more interesting life. Go do something really, really interesting. I think if any person, literally any person, no matter what your skill set, no matter what your knowledge level, if you went and spent 6 months to a year doing something that you thought was really cool or really interesting, and you didn't worry about money, but you only worried about having a life experience or learning things or experiencing things and paying attention to, being in those moments and learning from those, both on a self-awareness level and intellectual level, that then you'd have material to talk about for the rest of your life. You'd have a interest factor and an attention factor that would always be an asset to you. So first, I would look and say, am I an interesting person? Do I have interesting things to share? If yes, start posting about those right away. Doesn't have to be business related necessarily, could be life related. Because what happens is anything you've gone through in your personal life will inherently have some benefit or detriment to your business life. So sharing that and making those connections of, wow, I went through this and now because of it, I'm better in business at this aspect, or I went through this and it actually made it a real challenge for me to do this in business now. That those are really fascinating, insightful things for people to read about and to connect with you over. But if you don't have a lot of interesting things you've done, go do something interesting. Life is way too short, way too fortunate and amazing, and we're all so blessed. I hate the way that young kids have, hashtag blessed, turn that word, but I really do feel that we're all very blessed to live in such a wonderful age that go do something with it. Go do something fun. Go do something cool. Do something that piques your curiosity, and then tell people about your experience.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I mean, it's giving me some goosebumps when I look down as well. Just some of those things that you said about life and how they should make the most of it. Do something more interesting if they're looking inside themselves, thinking they've got a boring life, etc. Because even in these difficult, challenging times, there's so much to enjoy and
Yes.
so much to see and do and achieve, and
it doesn't have to be something wild and grand. I tend to think of I'm someone who goes, turns it up to 11 Spinal Tap. But really, I think if you're someone and you're like, I don't want to go on a big life adventure, or I don't that sounds too much, buy something off Amazon, buy a cool gadget, buy something that's interesting to you that you can use and dive into that interest level, because that makes you interesting. Being more interested in things in turn makes you more interesting. For example, bugs. I hate bugs. I don't think they're cool. I don't think they're interesting because they're so gross. I can't even be interested. But if I was talking to someone and they told me they were fascinated about bugs, I'd be like, you're an interesting person. Why do you like bugs so much? What have you learned about them? So there's this very cool dynamic of, it doesn't matter if anyone else likes what you like. The fact that you like it and that you can tap into that energy behind that interest is very, very powerful. So whatever it is you're interested in, buy something online. If we're all stuck in our houses right now, order something off Amazon, or from a small business. See if any of the local businesses have something going on to support them. And spend 40 hours, spend 100 hours over the next week, 2 weeks, really learning some stuff or getting really super into whatever it is that you're already interested in.
Okay, yeah, I really appreciate that, and lots of people listening here will as well. So, I mean, if anybody wants to find out more about any way that they could get some more help or support, or I've seen some of the case studies that you've been posting online. So clearly, people you're working with in many different capacities are having huge success. How would someone go about finding you, reaching out to you, contacting you, finding out more about how you can help them as well in their business and their journey online?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me. I'm on there for a large amount of time every day. You can find me. My name is Maayan, last name Gordon, Maayan Gordon. And you can message me, you can connect with me. If you are out of your connection requests, hit me up on Instagram. My Instagram is @monkeyboyart. You can send me a direct message through there. Those are probably the best two ways. You can also email me. My email is monkeyboyarts with an S @gmail.com.
Fantastic. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show today. There's so much content that you've given away to everybody listening, which will definitely be able to get some traction, get started, or get some momentum, or take them to the next level. And I'm just really pleased and blessed to have you on this podcast today. So
yeah, thank you so much
for being here. And if there's anything else that you wanted to add before the end, please feel free.
No, I mean, the last thing would be if you are struggling with motivation or you're struggling emotionally, just in general, it's really a time to find community and connect with other people. You're not going to get out of negative emotions on your own. You're really going to have to find some people to support you or some positive things to focus on. And that's all you need to do. The rest will really take care of itself. Put in that effort to put yourself in a positive mental state and to be optimistic, and you will naturally take the actions that you need to take to be successful.
That's brilliant. It's been fantastic to have you on the show, Maayan. And
thank you so much.
I would love to. You're completely welcome. I'd love to do it again sometime, and maybe talk about the journey from this point to there, and even more. And we didn't even really touch on Instagram, and then there's other platforms and different things where you're helping people. So I'd love to do it again at some point and go through some of those things as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really cool. One of the reasons I share kind of everything I'm doing so publicly and transparently is because it is a cool journey for people to see, starting from zero all the way to who knows where I'll end up. So I'd love to do this again and talk about everything that's happened, since now.
Brilliant. It's been fantastic to have you on the show. Really pleased. You've been a great guest. You've shared so much. Really pleased that we managed to put this together today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
In these uncertain and difficult times, having the right tactics and strategies at the right time is how anybody gets to secure their financial future. The largest transfer of wealth is happening right now. I want to give you all the resources and the reassurance at no cost that guarantees you will win and profit from the property and economic crash today. Imagine what your business and your life will look like when you use the right tactics and strategies to pull you and your family through these difficult times, which is exactly what these tactics did for me and my clients and my loved ones after the 2008 crash. Now, I completely understand that money will be harder to find, which is why these strategies I'm giving you are no money down or very little money down, so minimal risk. And you don't even need to buy a single property to earn an additional £1,000 plus per calendar month and a 5 or even a 6-figure lump sum when the economy bounces back. Today you can get this training and the advantage for free that the so-called gurus would charge you thousands of pounds for. Just visit www.propertycrashcourse.com so you have all the tools, the tactics, the resources, and the reassurance to keep the cash flowing into your family and your business when you understand exactly how to profit in a property and economic crash. My friends, don't lose your advantage by doing nothing after listening to this talk.